All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. We are here. It is Thursday, February 12th. A little pre-recorded show here today. So we got a couple of pre-recorded shows coming up. We've been live all week, but pre-recorded show today, tomorrow, Friday, as well as Monday, and then back to being live. Our regular scheduled programming resumes next Tuesday. That will be the plan. Might have to make some minor adjustments there as well. We're going through some off-season stuff, important meetings that we've been attending to here at Chatterbox Sports. So just bear with us a little bit as we work through this time of year. But before we know it, we will be back to every day live at 11 o'clock, and then eventually Reed Mouse will rejoin us as well. Reed Mouse, of course, if you're just kind of tapping in, had a baby a couple of weeks ago, and he's good. Mom's good. Baby's good. That's very positive, and we will be seeing Reed Mouse shortly. Might not be back with full off-the-bench stuff, but we'll get him to pop on our show from time to time. Certainly looking forward to that, but it's really no different than a typical show here today. We had a bunch of stuff that I want to hit on, and it's our first 7-round mock draft for the Cincinnati Bengals. There'll be a couple of versions of this. What's the draft in the end of April? We're sitting here in the middle of February, so we'll probably do 4 or 5 of them. It's very simple. I just run it through the PFF simulator. 7-round mock drafts, no trades this time around. I think that's probably the most accurate way to do it. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be making any trades. You never know. They could come out and surprise us, but we'll work through that mock draft. We'll spend a little bit more time with the earlier picks where I'll detail kind of who all was available, the thought process there, and as we kind of get into the later rounds, I'll just kind of mention the name, a little bit about the player, why I decided to pick them, and ultimately go from there. But always an exciting time of year. Super Bowl's wrapped up, and now once again, everybody, all 32 teams, has an opportunity to hoist that Lombardi Trophy next year, and it's back at SoFi Stadium, as we have mentioned here on the show. Perhaps a little bit of revenge for the Cincinnati Bengals if they can get back to that game, play at the site of the crime where that holding call was called on Logan Wilson a couple of seasons ago, and that would be a great end to the year next year. But everybody obviously has an opportunity. Draft time, combine time, free agent time, so still lots of exciting stuff going on around the NFL. Looking forward to doing our 7-round mock draft here on today's show. And then a couple of other general NFL topics we will touch on. I do think there's several storylines going into this offseason, as there always is in the National Football League, one of which being who is going to retire. We know Matthew Stafford is not. He came out at the NFL Honors and said, "See you next year," and that certainly is a positive sign for the Los Angeles Rams, but I think if you're a football fan, to have Matthew Stafford still in the game is very much positive. But the two names we will be talking about are Travis Kelce and Aaron Rodgers. Could they be hanging it up, or will they be coming back for another NFL season? Also, some quarterbacks that could be on the move in the National Football League. I think free agency-wise, it's not as crazy as previous years. There's not a ton of quarterbacks that are going to be shifting teams. Certainly not a ton that are going to be shifting teams and finding themselves in starting roles, but top free agent will be Aaron Rodgers. Hard to imagine him playing for a different team besides the Pittsburgh Steelers. In fact, I would be completely shocked if he returned to football and it was with a different team, but he's on the list. Daniel Jones is on the list. There's been some reports coming out of Indianapolis that they would like Daniel Jones to be back and be their quarterback next year. Malik Willis is another name. I kind of would be surprised if Malik Willis wasn't a starter somewhere come week 1, based on what he has shown the past couple of years as the backup to Jordan Love, Gardner Minshew, Jimmy Garoppolo, some other names to monitor there. Also some release candidates, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins. We'll talk about those two guys, and there's been some reports out of Atlanta that the plan is to eventually release Kirk Cousins, and ultimately he will be a free agent. Also, what about Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray? Two guys that are getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars that don't appear to be a part of the future in Miami and Arizona, so we'll talk about them. Also some trade targets, some trades that could go down in the National Football League. A couple of high-profile names here on this list. We've talked about Max Crosby a ton on this show. Certainly we'll discuss him. Tyreek Hill, He's reportedly unhappy in Miami, and if Tua's out the window, new regime in, could he be on his way out? Keon Coleman, of course, after the Buffalo Bills owner was banging on him while he's still on the team. A.J. Brown, I think, is kind of a foregone conclusion for me at this point. I would be shocked if A.J. Brown was a Philadelphia Eagle next year. Talk about them, and also a little bit about the NFL draft at the quarterback position, right? So, past couple of drafts have been, pretty loaded as far as the quarterbacks go, and I think we all know Fernando Mendoza is going 1, but who are the options beyond him? I'm a Ty Simpson guy, but I don't know if he belongs in the first round, so we'll touch on some of those names on today's show there as well. But make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. On our way to 22,000 subscribers here at Chatterbox Sports. Quote-unquote down period at this time, but we really don't have many down periods here at Chatterbox Sports because the Reds, they're out in Goodyear, Arizona, and they're getting going with their spring training, and we're really going to ramp up that Reds coverage. Nick Kirby, Trace Fowler, Craig Sandlin, Mike Hart, and others are raring, chomping at the bit, ready to go, and so are we here at the show as well. So that is right around the corner, and as I mentioned, lots of Bengals stuff that we will continue to discuss. March Madness, none of the local teams will be participating besides the Miami Redhawks. Fingers crossed, hopefully. They'll be representing this area of the state of Ohio in March Madness, but still ways to go there as this is coming out on Thursday. So Miami getting ready to play OU at Millette tomorrow night, which obviously is pretty exciting. We'll talk a little NBA stuff there as well. Trade deadline just went down in the NBA, but lots of fun stuff going on here at the channel. Subscribe, find our podcast, leave us a 5-star review. That really does go a long way and helps us out here at the show. Let's really just dive in to this mock draft here. Love doing these. Again, we'll do a few. This is our first one, so again, they're not going to be perfect, right? This is the first one. We'll make some adjustments and go on. Looking back at it, PFF gave me a B+. There's some things I like about it. There's some things I don't like about it. And I will just be fully transparent right off the top. But of note, by the way, before we get into that, Bengals have 7 picks. They don't have a 5th rounder. They have 2 6th-rounders. That's the Joe Flacco trade. We all remember that. Gave up the 5th to Cleveland, got the 6th back in return, so no 5th-round pick, but still 7 overall selections for the Bengals right now. We hope there is at least one more if they can execute a tag and trade with Trey Hendrickson. We all have our concerns on whether or not they will be able to execute that. But full transparency, I had to restart this thing on PFF like 4 or 5 times. Because the nightmare situation was unfolding. And by that, I mean all the defensive players were gone come pick 10. And I was sitting there going, my goodness, I don't know what to do. Now, maybe a little bit concerned because maybe that is what's going to transpire. All the guys that we're throwing around, the defensive names that we love, could they all be gone? I guess that could be a possibility. It was hard for me to believe that, but then I started doing this PFF draft sim, and I was like, shoot, maybe this does come true. So we'll kind of dive into that on a later mock draft. But for this one, I made it so one of the guys was still available. Again, I think there's a good chance that one of the dudes on defense is still available for Cincinnati at number 10, but I am open to the possibility of that not being the case because I had to restart this thing 4 or 5 times. Relatively concerning, but we're not going to deal with that here on today's show. Let's just dive in here to this mock draft. This is how PFF did it. You can do it yourself. Got to have a PFF account to do the full 7-round mock, but it's great. It's fun. You pick the team, you pick how many rounds you want to go, and you just kind of do it like you're the GM on draft night. So 1 overall, Mendoza. He's going to the Raiders. We don't really need to have that conversation. It's a foregone conclusion here at this point. I also think Arvell Reese 2 to the Jets kind of feels like that is inevitable as well. Now, maybe the Jets sit there and go, well, we got all kinds of problems here, and Arvell Reese is a heck of a player, but let's stockpile our picks even more, right? Kind of go OKC Thunder on this thing. They've stockpiled some picks at the deadline. Maybe they just say, let's add more. They get out of there. Hard to imagine Arvell Reese not going to out of Ohio State. Now the draft really begins at number 3. What's going to happen here? And PFF has David Bailey going 3 to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, of course, have issues all over the place. They don't have a quarterback. It's not going to be Kyler Murray. They got issues all over their offense. They brought in LaFleur as their new coach. They're in a really tough division. Kind of one of those teams where it just kind of feels like they're a bottom feeder, right? Kind of feels like they're going nowhere fast. In the NFL, the beautiful thing about the NFL is you can turn it around if you get the coach and quarterback right. Well, they don't have a quarterback, and we don't know if their coach is going to work out or not in Mike LaFleur. So I think they're a trade-out possibility. Try to stockpile some picks, but PFF in this particular mock draft has David Bailey going 3, which, you need an edge rusher. They don't really have one. They don't have a stud edge rusher, I should say. And, I would take David Bailey personally before Ruben Bain. And if you just watch the college football playoff, you probably think I'm crazy, and that's okay. But David Bailey's a heck of a player, and, again, seeing him go 3 here, it's just, again, I'm going to say it multiple times. It's a sim. It's PFF. Doesn't mean that this is what the GMs are going to do on draft night. But seeing him go 3 makes you think that the possibility of him falling to 10 is a little bit unlikely. 4, Jeremiah Love. He is absolutely a player that the Bengals need to see go in the top 9. Jeremiah Love is an unbelievable football player, but he plays running back. Right? And that position has gotten devalued over the course of the past few years. You saw Las Vegas take a swing at Ashton Jeanty, I think 6 overall last year. Clearly that did not work, but my response to that would be, yeah, no kidding. They don't have an offensive line. They didn't have a quarterback. They don't have enough skill guys on offense. Like, how are you going to expect a running back to have success if nobody's blocking for him, right? So I don't think necessarily that's going to scare a team away from drafting Jeremiah Love. Again, the athleticism is insane. The speed is insane. Toughness. He's the full package. He's one of the best players in this draft, and he absolutely should be a top 9 pick. Will a team get scared because of the Ashton Jeanty experiment in Vegas last year? I don't know. We saw the Lions take Gibbs really early when they took him, and a lot of people laughed at that. I'd say that worked out pretty well for Detroit, if we're being completely honest here. So the Bengals need Jeremiah Love to go in the top 9, and this mock has him going 4 to Tennessee, which I think is a fun fit, right? Bring in a new coach, new coordinator with Dayball coming in with Robert Saleh, young quarterback in Cam Ward, give him a stud running back, and kind of go from there. I don't hate that pick at all from Tennessee. 5, Carnell Tate. Bengals want as many offensive guys go in this top 9 as possible. He certainly is one of them. I don't think, Carnell Tate's a heck of a player. But this draft, and this is going to be kind of a theme as we go on here in the NFL, don't feel like it's the deepest draft in the world. And, you can find good wide receivers throughout drafts, right? You're seeing that across the NFL. But it just doesn't seem like there's that Jamar Chase or that Justin Jefferson, right? Or that CeeDee Lamb, right? That early pick that is just really a home run. Again, I'm not disrespecting Carnell Tate. He's a good player. I think he belongs in the top 10. But is it really top-tier wide receiver 1 talent in this class? Doesn't feel like it is. PFF, the simulator, has him going to the Giants. Again, good for the Bengals. 6, Ruben Bain, Cleveland. Ruben Payne and Myles Garrett. My goodness, that's a lot of sacks for Cleveland. That's a lot of disruption. That's a lot of hitting Joe Burrow. But I think the goal here, because I'm so worried about somebody taking Caleb Downs, I'm really worried about Cleveland taking him, and I'm really worried about the Commanders taking him, right? And Cleveland's at 6, and the Commanders are at 7. And that's just kind of, where we're at right now. And speaking of the Commanders, PFF has Caleb Downs going 7 here to Washington. That defense is a mess. Dan Quinn's a defensive guy. What more could you want in Caleb Downs, right? So it's the more we go on here, and we talked about this throughout the week, it's like, well, people view him as like a top 3 player in this draft. How in the world is he going to get to number 10? Kind of what I'm starting to wake up to at this point. But Caleb Downs, the mock has him going 7 to Washington. Kind of a gift here at number 8, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC, going to New Orleans. I get the pick because they need to get Tyler Shuck some help. They got Olave, but he's got the concussion history, the injuries. It's been kind of an issue staying healthy for him, and he's taking some massive shots, and they got to figure out if he's going to be a part of their future or not, because he's entering the final year of his rookie deal here at this point. So I could see New Orleans reaching on a receiver. I've said this multiple times. I know it's a hot take, but Lane, their other receiver at USC, I thought he was more talented, honestly. I know Lemon won the Biletnikoff. But that would be a gift for the Bengals if he went in the top 9, because he's a great player, but top 10 player seems like a bit of a stretch. Mansour Delane at 9. I've been a big fan of his for quite some time. To me, he's clearly the number 1 corner. People could argue that McCoy out of Tennessee is. I think it's Delane. I think Kansas City certainly could use a corner, and wouldn't surprise me at all if they made that selection. But I'm kind of at the point. If all these stud defenders go off the board and Delane's there at 10, I understand he's corner and you got bigger fish to fry than your cornerback spot, but I think Bengals fans need to open up to the idea of drafting Mansour Delane at number 10. Just saying. I know there's other players who would rather have, but dive into the tape a little bit. Check out some of his highlights. He's a really good player, and that wouldn't be the end of the world if he ended here in Cincinnati. But then you get to the number 10 pick, right? So a lot of the guys we all want are off the board. I don't think Reese is realistic. David Bailey, I think, is, but they got him going 3. Reuben Bain, gone. Caleb Downs, gone. And I'm sitting here at number 10, and I've got some options. Both tackles are available. The 2 top tackles in this simulator. Fano out of Utah and Maui Noah out of Miami are both available. They might be really good tackles. It's tough to find tackles, right? That's why they go so early, and that's why they get paid so much money. Tackle's not a problem for you in 26. I know you need depth. I know you need guys. I know you need a plan beyond Orlando Brown Jr. this year. I understand that. But no matter how much you fall in love with one of these guys, doesn't matter. Your defense is too bad. You cannot take them. As good as these guys might be, you might say, shoot, Francis Maui Noah, there's our left tackle of the future. We're good. Can't take him. You need to take a defender. So those guys are off the board. Jermod McCoy is available, corner out of Tennessee. Then you get into the Peter Woods conversation, interior guy out of Clemson. Cassius Howe, edge from A&M. Just took an edge from A&M. How's that working out? Keldrick Falk, Auburn, edge. And Caleb Banks, probably the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, but I don't know if he's a top 20 pick. Luckily for the Cincinnati Bengals, Sonny Styles was available at that number 10 overall selection, and that is exactly what I did. I didn't think twice. I looked at it, and I said, oh, Sonny Styles, he's there. Let's take him. Do think there's a world where he's not there in real life, and I also think there's a world where he is there, and Cincinnati says, well, he's not quite a top 10 pick. I don't care. He's a starting NFL linebacker in this league. And if all your boys are gone, top 9, and Sonny's sitting there at 10, you take him, right? You absolutely take him. The leadership's there. Played a ton of ball. Good tackler. Can run a little bit. Can cover. Can do it all. Stabilizing force for your defense. You'd feel disappointed you didn't get Caleb Downs, but it would be a sigh of relief if you draft Sonny Styles on night 1 of the NFL draft. That's what I would do at that spot. Let's get into the second-round pick. Huge pick for Cincinnati, right? Clearly, they got to hit the first one correctly, but they better execute the second one correctly there as well. And for these first couple of picks, we'll roll through the guys that went off before Cincinnati selects at 41 overall. Anthony Hill, linebacker out of Texas. He goes at 36. Good player. Dylan Thieneman, 37, out of Oregon, safety. Heck of a player. If he's at 41, if he falls to 41, I got a lot of interest there. A.J. Halsey, another safety out of LSU. Bengals, of course, need a safety. Keith Abney, the second corner out of Arizona State. Omar Cooper, the receiver out of Indiana. Those are the picks that went right before Cincinnati selects at 41 overall. And I've got them taking Gabe Jacas, edge out of Illinois. And I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. It starts with the J. I believe the J is silent. If not, apologies. I think, to me, if you don't go edge round 1, I think you got to go edge in round 2. And there is some depth at the edge position in this draft. There's going to be several guys that are available to you at 41 overall that have him similar size, similar traits, similar athleticism, similar production at the collegiate level, and it's going to be up to you to pick the right one. I went with Gabe Jacas. Other guys, Mason Thomas, the edge out of Oklahoma, didn't get as much production out of him as I got out of Jacas at Illinois. That was kind of the deciding factor there. Zion Young, who I like, a little bit stiff, right? And that doesn't really fit into what Cincinnati wants to do. They like the athletes, clearly, taking Shamar Stewart, so it was a little bit stiff for me. Colton Hood, another opportunity at the corner spot. I think he's going to go in the second round. Both these Tennessee corners are really good. Thought about him for a second. L.T. Overton out of Bama really has flashed, probably more so 2 years ago than this most previous year. But it was a heck of a lot of pressures and not enough sacks, right? I'm looking for sacks here, and that's something Jacas gave me out of Illinois. And Romello Heights, I really pondered that one for a second. Romello Heights was awesome for Texas Tech. If you remember, they built their team and their defense specifically out of the transfer portal. It worked, by the way. That's not why they lost to Oregon in the college football playoff. Their defense actually balled out in that football game. Romello Height has bounced around. I think he played for like 4 different schools. But he's a good player. He had production in some big games. I thought about him, but the size was a slight concern there with him. But I was kind of between Romello Height and Gabe Jacas out of Illinois, and I ultimately went with Jacas. Again, there's going to be a collection of edge rushers there at 41 overall, right? You're getting paid a heck of a lot of money to pick the right guy. You haven't done it in the past, pick the right guy. But I feel like the way, and you can never fully guess how the draft is going to break, but I kind of feel like edge second round is going to make some sense for Cincinnati because it's hard to believe Bailey or Bain's going to be available at 10, and that's something you're going to have to take care of at that number 41 overall spot. Third round. Couple of guys that go off before Cincinnati selects at 72 overall. Josiah Trotter, linebacker out of Missouri. Dominic Orange, interior defensive lineman at Iowa State. Connor Lew, center out of Auburn. Trinidad Chambliss, quarterback, Ole Miss. We'll talk about this later in the show a little bit. Going to Cleveland, which is interesting. However, they just took 2 rookies, so typical Cleveland there. Sam Hecht, center out of Kansas State at 71. Now I'm looking at 72. Different guys I'm thinking of here at this point. Anthony Lucas, another player out of SC. He's available at this spot. Zachariah Branch, the receiver out of Georgia. I don't think they should draft a receiver, but if you took one after round 2, I could be open to it. I just think with Burrow, Yoshi's good enough for this year, and then you deal with it next year. That's kind of where I'm at. The defense needs so much attention. There are other people out there that say the offense needs more attention. I think that's asinine, to be honest with you. But Zachariah Branch in the 3rd round, the speed that he has, it does make you sit there and think for a second. Jennings Dunker, tackle out of Iowa. I like him, but there's people in the league that think he's going to have to kick into guard. You see that a lot with some of these tackles where it's like, yeah, he's a draftable player, but at the NFL level, he's going to have to kick into guard because his feet just aren't quick enough. Apparently, that's a concern with him, but I love Iowa offensive lineman, and that's what he is. I kind of wanted to take a tackle here in the 3rd round. Again, I think this is an appropriate spot for you to look into the future and say, okay, this is our last year with OBJ. Let's try to go get his replacement. He was kind of the best guy, and just the idea of him, so many people saying he might have to kick into guard, I didn't love that, so I passed on him. Jacob Rodriguez is great, but I just took a linebacker in the 1st round, and obviously they just took 2 last year, Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, so I stayed away from Jacob Rodriguez, and thus I selected Daylen Everette at 72 overall, cornerback out of Georgia. He's a big-time player. Daylen Everette played a lot of football, came back for an extra year to play for Kirby Smart. He was his best in the biggest games, ball hawk, interceptions, PBUs, all over the ball, solid tackler. Is he a top-line corner in this draft? No. Is he the fastest guy in the world? He's got good speed, but I think there's some more high-end speed guys that will go before him. But, again, the reason why I'm picking him is, well, he played for Kirby Smart. He was the best coach in college football. Played a lot of football for him. Kirby clearly trusted him. He played well in the biggest moments, and he's a tough dude, and he's a competitor. Philadelphia has built their team on Georgia Bulldogs and members of the Alabama Crimson Tide. I don't think that's the worst strategy in the world. I think the Bengals probably could implement that a little bit more, if I'm being completely honest. And I want a Georgia Bulldog on this defense, and Daylen Everette kind of checks that box. Corner's a sneaky need for this team. Again, DJ and Dax, they were healthy all this past year. Was great. Can you rely on that again? Seems a bit aggressive. Need to get a corner in this draft. You could argue if it's day 3 as opposed to when I took him here in the 3rd round. That's fine. I like Daylen Everette here in this spot. I took him in round 3. All right. Round 4. This was tough because I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, all right, so I got my corner. I got my stud, Sonny Styles at 10. I got my edge rusher. Haven't addressed the offensive line yet, and don't have a safety. And I don't trust the Bengals to get a safety in free agency. Not a good enough safety in free agency. I don't. I think it is going to have to come in the form of the draft. Hopefully it's Caleb Downs, but as time goes on, I'm starting to think that there's a less and less likely chance that that's going to be the case. So I took a safety here at 110. Got a little aggressive here. I rolled the dice. I love Michael Taaffe out of Texas. His story is unbelievable. Could have went to an Ivy League school and played football under scholarship. He's from Austin, Texas. He said, no, I want to walk on. Couple years in, he's an All-American. Right? Dude's a stud. Was the leader of that team. I understand they underachieved this past year. He had an injury as well, missed some time. But you talk about leadership, right? Some Duke Tobin has been banging the table about. Well, you got it right here in Michael Taaffe. You talk about a guy that's just a winner. Talk about a cerebral football player who truly is that quarterback of the defense. Caleb Downs is the quarterback of the defense, and he also is the best player on the defense. Probably wouldn't be the case with Michael Taaffe, but he could still lead, right? And there are those that will say this is a bit of a stretch. Not going to lie, maybe I panicked a little bit not having that 5th-round pick, knowing, well, if I don't get a safety here and I'm looking at the 6th round, things could get a little dicey there. Bud Clark was available, and most people will say he's going to be a better prospect than Michael Taaffe, but I feel comfortable with Taaffe as a leader. There are some tackling concerns, which isn't great. But, when you're picking in the 4th round, really, I mean, there's going to be some flaws, right? And honestly, once you get outside the top 10, there's going to be some flaws, right? So from a character perspective, a competitive perspective, toughness perspective, football, IQ perspective, I love him. I got him taking him in the 4th round. And, again, that might be a bit aggressive. Bud Clark was available. I passed on him. Who else was available here? Tim Keenan on the interior out of Bama. Brian Parker. Xavier Scott also available. So there were some better players at this spot, but I felt comfortable in Taaffe. I think he's a heck of a player. I think he's going to make a career out of playing in the NFL. Is he going to be a star? That remains to be seen, but he's made of the right stuff. Just isn't super high-end athlete. But I think you got enough athletes on this defense to make up for that. You just don't have enough guys that know what the heck they're doing. And I think Michael Taaffe would fix that issue a little bit. 3 more picks. No 5th-rounder for Cincinnati. 2 6th-rounders and a 7th. And I'm actually very happy about how this draft ended for the Cincinnati Bengals. Pat Coogan was sitting there in the 6th round at 188 overall. So I said, give me Pat Coogan. Right? Pat Coogan, of course, was the MVP of the Rose Bowl. The center for Indiana, played at somewhere before Notre Dame before he transferred to Indiana, played for Cignetti. Just a dog, great leader. Don't need him this year, but as much as we all like Ted Karras, maybe he has a solid year this year, and you think about bringing him back on a 1-year deal, but there's a world where this is Ted Karras' last year here in Cincinnati. Again, I don't like saying that. He's a great dude. I love him. Love the relationship he's got with Burrow, but I think having his replacement, drafting his replacement might be smart, and with Matt Lee not doing anything at all, it doesn't seem like that answer's on the roster. He would be if you drafted Pat Coogan there as your next center, and I like that pick a lot. It was kind of a Christmas gift that just fell to me in the 6th round, so I took it. Haven't addressed the interior of the defensive line, so that's what I do with these last 2 picks. Zane Durant, to me, is kind of a wild card because the Bengals are lacking juice as far as somebody that could potentially get to the quarterback. They like athletes. They took Shamar Stewart, right? Zane Durant's played in some big games at Penn State. He's undersized, right? He doesn't look like an interior guy, but he's a good athlete. Now, is he just going to get mauled by some of these interior NFL offensive linemen? Perhaps, right? Again, it's a late 6th-round pick, so you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit here. But I like the upside that he has. I like the athleticism. And there's always a couple of guys. But Tierra Tart's a perfect example. Where was he at? Los Angeles, the Chargers. Undersized guy, but is just a really solid player for you. And I think Zane Durant could potentially be that kind of a diamond in the rough. I said Tierra Tart. I meant Poona Ford. Sorry, Poona Ford as kind of an interior, undersized guy, but just kind of creates havoc in there. And maybe Zane Durant could be that guy for Cincinnati. And then in the 7th round, I got Devin Eastern, all right, out of Minnesota. He's kind of the opposite. He's an interior guy, and he's huge, like 6'6", 330 plus. Hopefully would be a run stopper for you. I don't know if he's going to offer much as far as rushing the passer, but you got to beef up your interior of the defensive line. I don't love doing it in the 6th and 7th round, but at the same time, your rest of your defense is horrible. So you got to address some other things there at that spot as well. So kind of to recap here. Round 1, 10 overall, Sonny Styles. I think if Downs, Bailey, and Bain are off the board and Sonny's available, take him. He's a starter for you. He's a leader for you. Don't mess it up. Gabe Jacas at round 2, 41 overall, edge rusher out of Illinois. You're going to have multiple edge guys to pick from there. It's about picking the right one. You're going to have about 4, 5, 6 guys there in that category. Jacas is going to be one of them. Make sure you pick the right one. Daylen Everette, corner out of Georgia, round 3, pick 72. Big game ability. Played a lot of football. Played in the SEC. Georgia Bulldog. I like it. Round 4, 110. Michael Taaffe, safety out of Texas. Made of all the right stuff. Pat Coogan, round 6, 188. Steal. Round 6, 198, Zane Durant, interior defensive lineman from Penn State. Round 7, 226, Devin Eastern out of Minnesota, interior defensive lineman there as well. So PFF gives me a B+ here on this mock draft, and I think that's appropriate, right? I like it. I don't love it. Had to restart it a few times because, like, Sonny was gone in a couple of these that I was doing, and I'm sitting there going, who are you going to take? Again, I think you need to open up the idea, your mind, to possibly take him Mansour Delane out of LSU at that cornerback spot. But ended up getting Styles, kind of working from there, and rolled the dice certainly on Taaffe. I think Jacas is a really good player. I think I hit there at the end of the draft with some diamond in the rough type guys, but we'll take it for the first one, and we'll do a couple more iterations of this certainly as time goes on. But there's our first 7-round mock draft. Again, PFF. Got to have an account in order to do the full 7 rounds, but it's always a fun exercise to do this time of year. All right, let's dive into some NFL stuff to cap out today's show. We'll start with this. Who's going to retire? Right? I think there was really 3 names people were monitoring. Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Travis Kelce. Matthew Stafford put an end to that at the NFL Honors. He said he's coming back. Good for the Rams, obviously. Good for the NFL. Watching Matthew Stafford play quarterback, I've said this before on the show, I had a disdain and a dislike and maybe even a borderline hatred towards Matthew Stafford after what transpired in the Super Bowl, just because I'm a Bengals fan. I was salty. Right? That's the best way to describe it. I'll admit I was salty after that game, right? And what he did, that no-look pass, that gives me nightmares, right? To think about, go back and watch that. If you're, if it's going to put you over the edge, don't. But if you can handle it, just go back and watch it. Look at the clock, where the clock's at. Look at the score. Think about, we were that close to holding that Lombardi trophy. Year 2, Joe Burrow. Year 3, Zach Taylor, right? And then he has the audacity to throw a no-look pass with a couple of minutes left in the Super Bowl, down 4. It connects with the Super Bowl MVP, Cooper Kupp. And it was like it would have not been complete had he not no-looked it, because Von Bell was right there, and he works Von Bell with his eyes. Von Bell goes one way, he's looking one way, and he throws it the other way. So just a nasty play. Literally one of the best throws in the history of the National Football League, which is just devastating. And then he gets bailed out later on the Logan Wilson holding. But anyway, good that he's back. I'm watching throughout the playoffs. That performance, and I'm going to keep saying it, that performance in the NFC Championship against Seattle, people are going to stop talking about it. All people are going to talk about is the Seahawks and Sam Darnold. Well, remember how good the Seahawks looked on Super Bowl Sunday a couple of days ago? Well, that's the same defense that Stafford ate up for lunch, right? And I thought he clearly outplayed Sam Darnold in the game, clearly lost the game, but he's playing at an elite level. And we saw this with Tom Brady and others. When you get to a certain point in your career, even Aaron Rodgers at the end in Green Bay, where you have just seen so much football, and maybe your body isn't able to move the way it once was. Matthew Stafford's never been a runner, but I considered him like mobile within the pocket. He can't really move at all anymore. But you just have you've mastered the game, right? And when you've mastered the game and your arm has as much life as Matthew Stafford's does, it's hard to just stop playing, right? So he's going to be back. That's good for the Rams because, honestly, they're in deep trouble. But like, if he were to leave, like, what would they do at quarterback, right? I mean, do you take Ty Simpson at 13? That seems aggressive, right? Do you try to get Malik Willis? He doesn't seem like a Sean McVay guy, so they don't have to worry about that because Stafford's coming back. Other two, Aaron Rodgers. That was interesting. I've said this before. I like Aaron Rodgers, right? That doesn't mean I agree with how he operates off the field. It doesn't mean I agree with how he treats some of his teammates. But as far as watching him play quarterback, I love it. and I have forever. I was so happy I got to go to that Thursday night game, Bengals Steelers. First time I'd seen A-Rod in person, and he's 42 years old, and he was just slinging that thing. Obviously, the Bengals weren't even getting close to touching him. It was like he was playing two-hand touch out there. But the way that he could move around, even at 42, like he wasn't running past the line of scrimmage, running for first downs, but the movement from behind the line of scrimmage to watch it in person was insane, and just the way the ball comes out of his hands, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I didn't think he would be back. And then Tomlin retired, and I was like, yeah, he's definitely done. And then they turned around and hired his guy, Mike McCarthy. And that relationship is very interesting because there was a divorce, right? If you remember back at the end there in Green Bay, and there was a little bit of friction between Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. And then like a couple of years passed, and then Aaron, of course, had great success with LaFleur, won a couple of MVPs. And next thing you know, it was kind of like Aaron was like talking about all these great moments with McCarthy and just kind of loving him up and bringing him up in all these stories, which I get, but he was just kind of, I don't know, reverence isn't the right word, but just so much respect and admiration for him. And then McCarthy's talking, and it's the same thing. And it's like, well, I thought you guys broke up. I thought there was beef. What happened? And I guess it got worked out, or they just needed some space. I have no idea. But clearly they have a great relationship again. And Pittsburgh wants to win now. Which, are they going to win at a high level? No. But can they win 9, 10, 11 games with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers? Yeah. Yeah, they absolutely can. So I don't think there's not a world where Aaron Rodgers plays for a different team. But now with McCarthy coming back, and I'm sure he'll take his time and go as long as he can and have everybody talking about him and then make the decision. But from where I was when he walked off the field against Houston, to where I was when Tomlin stepped down to where I am now, it's a heck of a lot different. So as a football fan, bring him back. I love it to see him play. Now, some of the stuff he did that he gutted through, he doesn't get enough credit for being tough. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a tough son of a gun. And he's sitting there, future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, has no reason to still be playing, and is playing through a broken hand this year, right? I was really impressed with that. And clearly he's got a lot of love for the game. And that one's fascinating to me because what do you do if you're Pittsburgh if you lose him? Bill Howard time? That's not good. Draft a guy? I don't know. But as time goes on, and this McCarthy thing, I'm kind of starting to think that Aaron Rodgers will be the quarterback of the Steelers next year. Now, Travis Kelce, I would be surprised if he was done. And it kind of all depends on how Kansas City handles this, right? Because it's a cutthroat business. It really is. Like, I never would have thought that Klay Thompson would have left the Warriors, right? And they're at the deadline. It's like, are they going to trade Draymond? And now it's like, could Steph Curry potentially play for another team? Like, it's just, you don't get a lot of these storybook endings. You don't get a lot of these Derek Jeters, these Larry Fitzgeralds, these Eli Mannings that just play for the same team. Shoot, look at Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Ended up playing on different teams. It's just kind of the way it is. So, it'll be interesting to see if Kansas City, wants him back. I know Pat Mahomes will be banging the table saying yes. Clearly, when he was out there, he's, I don't want to say a shell of himself, but he's not the top tight end in the league anymore. We all know that. But I just think that if there's one thing about Travis Kelce is he loves the spotlight, he loves the attention on him, but he loves to compete as well, and he loves winning. And they went to 5 or 6 Super Bowls, right? And then they just kind of have a horrible year this year. Pat goes down. They have a losing record, and he's probably feeling lost right now. Like, not playing in playoff games, not playing in meaningful games down the stretch. He's probably like, what in the world? It's probably a good reset for him, for the body, but I don't think he wants to step away yet. And, maybe I'm just making this up, but I do think there's something to, he's marrying Taylor Swift. And when he's done playing football, he'll still be Travis Kelce, but he won't really be on that kind of level. Like, he'll just be a retired player. He's in the NFL right now, and regardless how good he is, when he steps on an NFL field, everybody's looking at him, right? And I don't know. I just think I would be surprised if he stepped away at this point. His days are clearly numbered in this league, but I think Travis Kelce will be back next year. Quarterbacks on the move. Again, usually there's more top-of-the-line free agents at that position. There's really not this year, which I think certainly is interesting. Aaron Rodgers, who we just talked about, is at the top of the list. But, again, to me, it's either Pittsburgh or retirement. Like, where is he going to go? I mean, I think he would have wanted to go to Minnesota last year, but they didn't want him, right? Would they change their mind now? I doubt it, right? They got to figure out a quarterback. It ain't J.J. McCarthy. We all know that. But you're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers for 1 year? To me, that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Daniel Jones, what's Indianapolis going to do at quarterback? He was having a really good year. And I sat here on this show, and I was like, you know what? This isn't a fluke. This is actually happening. This is real. And I think a lot of people thought the Colts were going to make the playoffs. I certainly did for a period there. Then they go all in on Sauce Gardner, and we were all like, what are you doing there? And then it just blows up in their face, and they implode, and they end up bringing out 60-year-old Phillip Rivers from retirement. He plays fine, but they're just not able to do enough to win games, and now they're in a really tough spot because they just gave up a ton of compensation for a guy in Sauce Gardner that got hurt, and, of course, their quarterback got hurt. Now, I can respect big swings, but sometimes you take big swings and you miss, and that's kind of where New England or Indianapolis is at right now. We see these guys come back from these injuries. Achilles, you never know, right? And that's, again, Aaron Rodgers played good for Pittsburgh this past year. And I think you could say, well, Stone, he's 42 years old. Obviously stopped being able to run. Fair, but I also think the Achilles injury probably plays into that a little bit. And, Kirk Cousins was playing really good football. He pops his Achilles, and it's like, yeah, he's old, but he also doesn't look right. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how Daniel Jones comes back. Much younger player, obviously, but there's been reports that Indianapolis wants him back. And if you're Indianapolis, I kind of get it, right? Because you're not, again, the draft's so weak. There's nobody in free agency. You want Kyler or Tua. Probably rather just have Daniel Jones at that point. So that'll be interesting. Malik Willis, to me, is a fascinating one. All Malik Willis has done, think about him. He was picked relatively early in Tennessee, and then it's like he couldn't even get the backup job, and clearly it was like, all right, this kid is not ready. That was a really weak quarterback class. That was Kenny Pickett and him, and he was at Liberty, right? So it was, tough quarterback class that year. But since he has been in Green Bay and working with Matt LaFleur, he's become a really good player. And the games that he has gotten in, Jordan Love's gotten dinged up a little bit, and he's had to play both 2 years ago and last year, and he has looked like an NFL quarterback. Not to say that you give him some Sam Darnold deal even, where it's like you commit to this guy for multiple years, but give him a chance to come in and compete with a young guy to start out camp, see if he can't win a job. I think that's going to happen. And my money would be on Malik Willis being a starting quarterback in the NFL week 1 next year. I'm not going to say there's going to be tremendous success, but I feel like somebody's going to give him an opportunity. Clearly to me, you could say it's Aaron Rodgers, but I think really the best free agent quarterback this year is Malik Willis. Gardner Minshew, he'll be a backup somewhere. Not really a needle mover there. Same with Jimmy G. Not really a needle mover. Do you bring him back if you're the Rams? Do you just go with Stetson Bennett as your backup? Questions there that need to be addressed. If you're Cincinnati, do you go after Garoppolo? Which, I don't know. I do think you need to pay the backup quarterback in Cincinnati. I think you need to bring in a guy. Mariota's going to be too expensive, but somebody like the next tier from that, Joe Flacco would be the perfect guy, but somebody might want to bring him in as a bridge guy. So Jimmy G is an interesting one, or a Case Keenum, somebody like that, but obviously not going to be a starter anywhere. Release candidates. Geno Smith obviously is getting released. He had a good run there in Seattle. I give him a lot of credit for it. People had wrote him off. He didn't write back, as he told everybody. Deserves credit for that. Will he get another opportunity somewhere else? I don't know. As a starter, I don't know. But he can be a backup for several more years. It's very difficult in Las Vegas. Now, he had some body language issues, some frustration issues, beefing with teammates and coaches, which I didn't think he handled well at all. But who's having success in Vegas last year? Nobody, right? Patty Mahomes isn't having success in Vegas last year. Just kind of where they were at as an organization. So he'll be somewhere else. Don't really have any names off the top of my head. Do you entertain him if you're Minnesota? I don't know. Kirk Cousins as well. There have been reports that Atlanta's going to release him. They should have moved on from him previously. But, he's going to be a backup. He played in some games there. Had some good moments, right? Beat the Rams at the end of the year. That was exciting. His times as a starter are done, I think, for him. he's in a position where he needs somebody to get hurt in order to have an opportunity, or he needs to just kind of be on the street and kind of be that Phillip Rivers option this past year where he's just kind of hanging out, laying low, and then somebody calls him up, hey, Kirk, what you doing? All right, yeah, I'm ready to go. Hard to imagine somebody committing to him for week 1 this coming year. Speaking of that type of player, Derek Carr reportedly wants to come out of retirement, and he had a ton of injuries, right? And he kind of took the high road in New Orleans for how he handled it. Could have ended up getting more money out of it, but he didn't. He stepped away, got healthy, and apparently he wants to come back. Again, Minnesota is kind of an option here. I was saying if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, I do whatever I can to trade for Mac Jones. I would give up a second-round pick for Mac Jones. I am not kidding. I absolutely would do that if I was the Minnesota Vikings, not if I was some other team. But the Niners don't want to move him. And I don't blame them at all. They've got the best backup quarterback in the National Football League on a very friendly deal, and they need him, right? Because Brock Purdy is a really good player, but has shown that he's going to get hurt from time to time. And to win with a backup like Mac Jones, if you're the Niners, you're doing everything you can to keep him. Now, if you got a first-round pick, you'd move him. You can't get a first-rounder for Mac. But if I was the Vikings, I absolutely would trade a second-rounder to get him in there with O'Connell, indoors, Justin Jefferson. Mac Jones would have crazy success in Minnesota if he was the starting quarterback there. 2 other names, and these ones are interesting. And it's the 2 boys that are getting paid that aren't going to be playing for the teams that they're currently on right now. And that's Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. Let's start with Tua. I've been a Tua guy for a long time. Clearly, he had some really good years before he got hurt too many times with too many head injuries. We were talking a couple years ago about him being the MVP, right? And, you didn't need to vote for him, but you couldn't deny that he wasn't a top 3-4 MVP guy. But then he gets I think it was after Buffalo got another one, and he comes back, and it's just like, dude, what's going on? And even before the injuries, he couldn't play in the cold, so that was always an issue. But it's like the arm has gotten even worse. Like when he lets that thing go, it's like Peyton Manning that final year in Denver. Like it ain't going anywhere fast, right? He can't throw it down the field. And one thing about him at Alabama was like Tua ain't gonna turn the ball over. Like he's gonna protect the football, he's gonna make strong, accurate throws, and he's gonna move the team down the field. Well, he turns it over at an absurd rate now. And also the lack of mobility is absurd. He could move at Alabama. Right? I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if this is concussion related or what. He can move around at Alabama. He cannot move at all. In fact, when he leaves the pocket, you're holding on for dear life saying, oh, God, 1, don't hit your head, and 2, throw it away. Because there's some people, when they leave the pocket, your heart starts to race a little bit because you know something cool is about to happen, i.e. Joe Burrow. When Tua leaves the pocket, you go, oh, God, something horrible is about to go down. Right? So I don't know. I mean, credit to him. He got his big-time contract. I mean, he's getting paid $50+ million, which is absurd. Good for him. But if you're Jeff Hafley, you can't. You don't come in. You never know if you're going to get another year being a head coach. And you're in a great city of Miami, right? You're a defensive guy. Like, you want to bring in a different guy at quarterback, whether you're drafting somebody or trading for somebody. Like, you got to move on. And you're not going to be able to trade Tua, right? Because nobody's taking that contract. It could very well be kind of a Russell Wilson situation where you just got to eat it, right? And look at Denver. They were just in the AFC Championship game. So you can fight it off. You can figure out ways around it, but, like, nobody's trading for that contract. And, like, maybe a situation where, like, a late-round pick and then you have to eat most of the money. I'm not a cap guy. I don't know exactly, but nobody's taking that contract. Kyler. This one's a little bit interesting because same thing. He's getting paid too much. Nobody wants it. But I could see a team rolling the dice a little bit on Kyler if Arizona takes on much of the money. Cleveland's certainly one that pops into mind. Todd Monken had Lamar Jackson for several years, had great success. And Kyler's not Lamar, but there's some similarities there as far as, moving around, being a mobile guy. Kyler has a great arm, and he throws a beautiful deep ball. And it's funny because he's like 5'4" back there doing it. But he's got traits, right? Now he can't see over the offensive line, which is a problem, right? So you're going to see people stop drafting quarterbacks that small. I mean, he's like absurdly small. But, you got to be. I think the days of drafting a guy even 6', 6'1" or over, like you gotta be 6'4", hanging back there, big strong guy. But I could see a team giving Kyler a chance. Again, like Minnesota doesn't really make sense for him. Cleveland sort of does with that Monken relationship. That could be interesting. So we'll see. But I think Kyler is a little bit more valuable than Tua just because, I mean, he has an injury history, but it's not the head, and it doesn't look like he's fallen off a cliff. Because, like, Tua, go back and watch. I understand that a lot of people weren't in on Tua from the jump, but you watch him that first year with McDaniel to now, he can't move at all, right? The arm is worse. The decision-making, like, it's just not good for Tua at all. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to figure out what happens with those guys. Potential trades. Who's going to get traded? Max Crosby was at the top of the list. There's been some reports that he had a conversation with Tom Brady and said, I'm not playing another down with the Raiders. Don't know if that's true or not. McAfee was talking about it the other day. Clint Kubiak just got hired, and he was there day after the Super Bowl. Apparently said he had a cup of coffee with Max Crosby. It's interesting because Max Crosby's a heck of a player, and I think there's some people out there that think he's like Trey Hendrickson's age. He's 28, right? He's still got several elite years ahead of him. I would trade for him if I was the Bengals. Like, I would give up pick number 10 to get Max Crosby, and I'd give up a heck of a lot more than that too. They're not going to do it, but I'm just telling you what I would do. I would say his market is probably 31 teams, right? There should be 31 teams calling, hey, what can we do to get Max Crosby? Kind of feels like a Niner a little bit, maybe a Chicago Bear, something like that to me. But I think if you're the Raiders, you appreciate everything he's done, all the effort he's given, but you're kind of looking at the clock going, yeah, we can get this thing, at best, we can get this thing turned around by 27. And that's at best. They're not going to be good this first year. And at 27, maybe that's like backdoor your way into the playoffs. You see these teams do it in 2 years, right? The Bears and the Patriots. And the Patriots really was 1 year, but second year with Drake May. So you can do it, but then he's going to be 30 at that point. So I think I leave it up to him. Because it's like, if you're the Raiders, like, yeah, we'll keep you here and, we'll keep paying you. You're one of the best players in the league. But we also understand if you want to go somewhere else and we could get a haul for you. So that'll be interesting to figure out how that conversation goes. Again, everybody's going to want him, but I do think there's a good chance Max Crosby gets moved, and he will be the number one trade guy that we're talking about. Didn't even put Jeffrey Simmons on this list. If I'm Bob Saleh taking this job, but the first thing I'm saying is I'll take the job if you don't trade Jeffrey Simmons, right? So hard to imagine he's going to get moved. A.J. Brown, to me, I think is a guarantee to get moved. New England, of course, is the first team that pops into mind. Had the relationship with Vrabel. Vrabel was ticked when he got dealt from Tennessee. And if you watch the Super Bowl, they didn't have anybody that could win one-on-one. Drake May did not play well in the game. They clearly did not block well in the game. But I think if they had a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson out there, it would have looked a little bit different offensively for them. So A.J. Brown, to me, I think it's run its course in Philly. It worked. You won a Super Bowl, right? Was it smooth sailing? No. Were there some bumps in the road? Absolutely. But it worked. You won a Super Bowl. And I think you move on, right? And clearly there's some friction there, and he's a bit of a diva, right? And we all know that. So I think you move him, get a haul from him, and Howie will continue to do what he does. And then Keon Coleman, I think, is another name, only because of what the owner, what's his name, Terry Pagula, was saying about him at his press conference. That was bizarre. We talked about it on the show a couple of weeks ago, but hard to imagine Keon Coleman's a Bill next year after that conversation with the owner. But I don't know. But then again, like, what are you getting? Like a 5th-round pick for him? Clearly hasn't panned out to where you drafted him. Lastly, the NFL draft in the quarterback position. Some drafts are crazy good at quarterback. I think there will be some people that say the draft from a couple of years ago is the best one we've seen. I still think the 20 group. I know Tua was in there and taken high, but Burrow, Herbert, Love, and Hurts has a ring. Like, that's, to me, that's about as good as it gets. Drake May, of course, just went. And then Daniels was in the title game the previous year. Caleb Williams had a great little run there in the playoffs. But we're not in that boat this year, right? I don't know if it's Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett bad, but I don't even think there's a consensus on the second quarterback. In my opinion, I know who it is, but I don't know if the rest of the league or people that talk about the league believe that. Mendoza's going 1. And Ty Simpson, to me, he's a good NFL prospect. Is he a top 10 pick? No. But I watched every Alabama game this past year. I'll just say it how it is. I did. So I watched pretty much every snap of Ty Simpson. The fact that he got them to where he got them, to win a playoff game and get in the Rose Bowl, he carried that team on his back. Ain't nobody was blocking for him, and hardly anybody was getting open for him, and his defense wasn't good, right? And it was kind of it's not a clown show in Tuscaloosa. I think DeBoer deserves some credit for what he's been able to do, but let's not act like it's anything near what it was when Nick Saban was there. And he stayed because of Nick Saban, even when Nick Saban obviously left. Right, if you look at Ty Simpson, his little goodbye to Alabama, it's like all Nick Saban. And like the past 2 years, obviously, he was playing for Kalen DeBoer. But he committed to Alabama because of Nick Saban, and he stayed there even after he left. He's got traits. When you give him time, he's surgical with the football. He's got a good arm. He's tough. Nobody got hit more in college football than Ty Simpson, right? He got punished. And if he goes to the Jets or the Cardinals, he's going to get punished, right? He can hang in there. The mobility's great. The accuracy's great. He's got some downfield accuracy as well. Did he play his best at the end of the year? No. He was clearly hurt at the end of the year. And they were outmatched in all those games. Like that Georgia team, they beat him early. But that Georgia team, Kirby got them better, and they were playing great football there at the end. So you can't take him in the top 10, right? Even if Dante Moore would have came out, I would have taken Ty Simpson over Dante Moore. But to me, he feels like the end of the first round or early second round type guy. I think that position, the Cardinals picking third in the second round, kind of feels like a spot for him. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody took him in the first. I think there's value taking him in the first. I think pretty clearly he is the second best prospect behind Mendoza. I will be shocked if he's available when the Bengals are picking at 41, right? I think he will be gone by then. And then you look beyond him, and you're like, what in the world? Like, who's the third quarterback in this draft? And it's funny because I think it's Trinidad Chambliss. And Chambliss, of course, was trying to get another year. That, to me, is ridiculous. Like, I don't know all the details, but it's like, we're going to be talking about a COVID year in like 2040. Like that was in 2020. Let's move on. And it's crazy to me how some of these kids can get eligibility. Some of them can't. I mean, the NCAA, it's a free-for-all right now. It's a total mess. Bediako comes back from the G League for Alabama basketball and is playing, and then there's a court hearing. It's like, well, he actually can't play, but you let him play. Like, what? No kidding, he shouldn't be able to play, but why'd you let him play for a few weeks? It's all a mess. But Chambliss doesn't get his eligibility. I think it kind of works out for him. I'm sure he would have loved to go back to Ole Miss and kind of have another run with Pete Golding and see what they could do. But this is such a weak quarterback draft. I think he's going to be the third quarterback taken. And I was just kind of getting on the soapbox there about smaller guys. But Chambliss as the third quarterback off the board that you take in like the third round or the late second round, I think there's a lot of value there. And I think that's kind of intriguing, to be completely honest with you, because the kid's a highlight reel. And he's got some serious guts, too. Big-time, big-moment player. So somebody might have a steal in him. Then, the next best guy is Garrett Nussmeier. I'll go hand up accountability. I picked LSU to win the national title before this year. And clearly that was horrible as Brian Kelly got fired, and that just blew up in my face. But I thought Nuss was going to have a good year and be a first-round pick. He actually ended up getting benched through the stretch there at the end. But you always see some guys go down to Mobile, Alabama in the Senior Bowl and have a really good performance, and their draft stock skyrockets. Might be Nuss, because everybody in Mobile was talking about, Garrett Nussmeier. He's out there balling. And obviously his dad is the OC in New Orleans, so there's NFL ties there. Somebody might take a flyer on him. I mean, Carson Beck, I don't think he's draftable, to be honest. And he had some big moments there, but just seeing how he handled losing the national title, it's like, are you 7 years old or are you a college kid? I don't know. But you got to give him credit for how he played in high leverage moments there. So, I joke about not being draftable, but I think somebody will take him. Do I think he's going to have success in the NFL? No, I don't. But I guess he's the next guy. And then Drew Aller, who got hurt at Penn State. Credit to him for coming back, I guess. But he's been overrated his whole career. People are talking about him eventually being the number one overall pick. Again, he'll be lucky to get drafted, in my opinion, especially coming off an injury, but he's not going to be any good in the NFL. Sawyer Robinson I like a lot out of Baylor, but he throws a lot of interceptions. But the whole point is that list after Simpson is that's not really much there. And a lot of people would say, even with Simpson, that's not much. After Mendoza, it's not much. So it'll be fascinating to see when these quarterbacks go. Because remember how far Shedeur fell this past year. So, our team's going to be patient. Is somebody going to get aggressive with one of these guys? The Giants kind of got aggressive with Jackson Dart. I think that was fine aggression. I think it's going to work out. Don't mean he's going to be hoisting trophies, but I think he's going to start for them for a couple of years at least. Will somebody be aggressive, try to get Simpson early? Will somebody really roll the dice on Chambliss? That could be fun because he had some big-time moments there in the playoff, but that obviously remains to be seen. Lots of questions here in the NFL as we kind of get the offseason underway. But appreciate everyone, as always, for tuning in to the show. And we will be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock for another edition of the show. And check out our clips on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seabox Sports. Follow me on Twitter at StoneShields_. Follow the show at The Stone Shields as well. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.